Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for a brand new Film Fanatic show. It is 10:34, May 11th. The sun is out. Beautiful day. Yesterday was Mother's Day, so I hope everybody had some quality time with their mom. We I did a got some flowers and went over to my mom and got some movies. We watched some movies. We had a nice dinner over at my folks, so that was cool. It was a pretty nice day. Today seems like it's going to be a really clear and sunny day for a change, which is really nice. Weather's been pretty dreary and rainy and kind of cold and dark for a while here in Mid-Coast Maine. Every now and then we get pockets of sun, but it's pretty nice so far. Anyway, I guess yeah, I want to give a little plug for a show coming up with Quantum. We got quite a few shows coming up this year, this summer, spring, summertime, which I'm pretty excited about. And so the uh, the next show coming up is going to be this Saturday in the afternoon. We'll probably start about 1:30, and it's going to be at Opera House Video, and it's going to be another show with my great friend Ronnie, aka Sonic Wallpaper. We did a show together. It's probably oh man, it's probably almost 2 months ago or a month ago, at least over a month ago, where we did a set, like two sets, I guess, of music where we played at Opera House Video, and it's going to be kind of the same, I think, structure. We kind of set it up, and I had this idea of doing it where, as opposed to like your typical thing where you have a couple of bands play and each band plays a set, 45 minutes or an hour, and then there's the changeover, and then the next band plays, which is common. I had this idea to have it set up where both of us are set up and ready to go, and we basically are doing this kind of like round robin thing where we kind of alternate every 10 minutes or so. We alternate 10 or 15 minutes. We kind of switch up and go back and forth, kind of like, I don't know, kind of like passing the hat or passing the baton. And it's all and we did this show, this kind of setup a couple times in the past, and it was really great. And the last one that we did was really fun because it ended up being kind of all like improvised music, which is kind of a whole different thing, and in a lot of ways, you know, really challenging in its own way. And I had gotten this idea to try this from going to see a show at Hey Sailor, which was like over the summertime last year, and it was really cool. There was like it was kind of structured as like a singer songwriter showcase, and they had, I don't know, it was like a 2 hour show or so, but they had like four or five different singers and songwriters. They all acoustic, and what they did is they all like set up on stage at the same time, and they basically would go one person to the next, and they would kind of switch back and forth. And then they got into this thing of where they were, one person would kind of start playing and bleeding into the next person, and then towards the end they started doing these kind of jams where it was all kind of morphing into where they were all like playing together, and they were doing, bouncing back and forth between doing like some of their material, some of their songs, but then also doing these kind of improvised sections. And I was like, that's a cool idea. Like, I like that. And you see, that's like kind of a common thing, or a thing that you see a lot sometimes with acoustic music, especially like say in the campfire situation of where people are all sitting around, with acoustic guitars at a campfire, and they're just like, kind of off the cuff, they're playing some songs, and maybe they do these jams, and it's like really loose. But I thought like, oh, this is a cool idea because this is like a concert kind of setting, but they're taking that same kind of thing, more or less that same kind of idea, but putting it in a like concert venue experience, but also going a little bit further where it's, you know, they're improvising, they're playing off of each other, they're kind of riffing off of each other. Somebody establishes some kind of vibe or some kind of thing, and then somebody tries to run with it, and then it kind of culminates to where they will kind of play together, and it will be this cool balance of like, you know, songs that they have in their kind of repertoire, but then they're also totally improvising. So I got that idea or this idea from that show, and I was like, that's cool. Like, and you see that, you know, that's a little more common in that kind of setting or in the acoustic world. And I thought, well, maybe we could try that in the electronic world with both of our groups, because Ronnie's group, Sonic Wallpaper, and my group Quantum, we've played a lot of shows together over the last few years, which has been really fun. But they've always been structured to where, you know, he'll play a set, you know, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and then we'll come on and play a 45-minute set of just, you know, our material, whatever. You know, and that's usually how it's always been. And I thought, well, this would be cool, like taking that kind of idea, but putting it in this context of like, you know, this round robin thing. So we did it twice at Opera House Video, and the last time we did it was super fun, and it was really interesting because, you know, I ended up not really playing any kind of tunes per se or preconceived or any material, any of our songs, if you want to call them songs. We never really performed that. We just kind of played off of each other, and we would kind of rotate. So that's what we'll be doing this Saturday. And it's a fun experiment. It's a challenge. And, you know, like anything, sometimes things might go off the rails or might not connect, but then there's also sometimes there are moments of where, because you're, you know, maybe you get in the zone, if you will, and you kind of get lost in the moments, maybe some real interesting things come out of it. So that's kind of the idea and concept of it. And we did this show the last time we did it, which was about a month or two ago. We had this format, and it was super fun, and it was there was a good crowd, and there was like, I don't know, a cool buzz in the air. There was also the ice sculpturing festival was going on in Belfast at the time, so there was extra people, you know, walking around and just in town, foot traffic and things. This is going to be, I don't think there's any like big events happening on Saturday in Belfast itself, so it'll be just us doing it. But I mean, it's going to be the same kind of structure. So yeah, really looking forward to it. So that's coming up Saturday, and that's going to start at about probably like quarter after 1 or 1:30 this coming Saturday. So put up. I've been doing some promotion for the show for what it is, and again, it's a pretty laid back kind of vibe, and you know, more of a kind of a loungy kind of a setting too, because it's in Opera House Video, so it'll be fun. It's a, you know, kind of a different vibe than, you know, say if it was at a regular you know, performance space like a venue. So anyway, the other thing that was really cool, and it was, this was a movie I went to the movies yesterday. I went to a matinee. And I actually hadn't been to a matinee in quite a while. I used to be a big fan of going to matinees. Well, obviously because it's cheaper, but kind of a cool way to start the day, where you go and, you know, you go see a movie like at noon, or, you know, sometimes maybe a little earlier, but usually early afternoon, late morning. It's kind of a cool way to start the day. You go into the movies and you know, and then you go to the movie, and then you have your whole day. You know, you get out and it's still light out. It's the afternoons, and then you still have your whole day. It doesn't, you know, and then you have time to make plans for at night or whatever you need to do. And the biggest draw to going to matinees is it's a lot cheaper. Now that I think of it, I think the last time I went to a matinee was a few years ago. I think it was to go. The last movie I saw in the theater for a matinee was Halloween Ends, which is kind of crazy. Because I was, not obviously that movie got dumped on big time by critics, and it didn't do very well in the box office. It was a very controversial movie. It was the conclusion of David Allen Green's Halloween trilogy, which I'm not really a fan of at all. The Halloween reboot and then the Halloween Kills. Not a fan of those films really at all. So I was really like skeptical and not excited to see Halloween Ends. But then I heard so many bad things about it, and it was just weird because it was like it got so many bad reviews and people were just crapping on it. That I was just like, man, I don't know. But one of the things that happened while I was, checking out, reviews for for that film and just hearing all this negative feedback was like I kept hearing a little bit more and more about the plot scenario and the story, and I was like, you know what? Even though everybody's giving it incredibly bad and negative reviews, I was like, the story kind of sounds kind of interesting and different. And maybe it's not, and so maybe it's not as bad as people are saying, and I don't know, maybe it's just like all this negative hype, and people jump on bandwagons, all the time because everybody and their grandmother's saying it, so they want to like they feel empowered or emboldened to just jump on that. I don't know, it's weird. So I was like, well, I think I'm gonna just go see it, and I ended up not making a plan to. I didn't have any plans to see it, and then it was just totally on a whim, and I went to it. I ended up actually really liking it. Go figure. And I have it now on Blu-ray. Not a perfect movie, but anyway, this was like shit 2 3 years ago. So that was the last time I went to a matinee. So yesterday we went. One with a buddy of mine, my friend Mike. We went to go see the new Mortal Kombat film that just came out. Mortal Kombat 2, which just came out. I think it opened on Friday. And I'm a fan. I mean, the original Mortal Kombat film, of course, the early '90s film. That's a movie that I think is great, and I've always loved that film. It's super cheesy, super campy, super dated, but there's but I think it's one of those movies that is really kind of cheesy and ridiculous, that it's kind of, I don't know, kind of fits in that thing of, well, it's kind of so bad it's kind of good. And I've always had, I've always been attracted to those characters. I've always loved the Mortal Kombat world, like ever since I was a kid. So I have the original Mortal Kombat, I think, on DVD. I don't know if I have it on Blu-ray. I might have it on Blu-ray. I kind of want to revisit it. But I think it's one of those cases. Again, it's pretty cheesy when you watch it now, and it's like, it's pretty dated. But I do think it's and it's obviously it's Mortal Kombat. It's like it's all martial arts. It's all fantasy. It's super, super fantasy based, super science fiction based. So it's very, it's a very, kind of wild and over the top world or aesthetic to the Mortal Kombat thing. And but I do think that it still holds up. I still think it's a great movie, even though I think all of the things that are kind of negative about it, because of that, that the fun factor of it too. I think all of those things together make the film still really great, and I still love that movie. I still think it's really great, and that was a movie that I watched like millions of other kids. I think I came out when I was in high school maybe, and I love that movie. I love there was a brief time for a while I was really into the game, and I don't really play video games now, but I was really into Mortal Kombat, and I did play the game. So I was, was a total nerd, and I was totally into that. And I loved that film, and I still think it's great. And I do think I have it on DVD. I know I have it on DVD. I might even have it on Blu-ray. I have to check it out because it's been a while. It's actually been a long time since I've seen it. And then like a few years back, there was an animated Mortal Kombat movie that came out that is absolutely amazing. Like it's super bloody, it's super graphic, it's incredibly violent. And there were two guys that used to work at Opera House Video. They are no longer there, and they were super cool. And this was like kind of before the COVID times. They had recommended this movie to me, and I was just like, wow, this fucking movie rules. I need to get it. It's an animated movie, and it's like brutal as all hell. And it's actually way more brutal than the original movie. I mean, the original movie, I don't think had an R rating. I think it was like PG 13. It was violent, but not very graphic, not very bloody, but still good, and you got the sense of what was going on. But the animated movie that had come out a few years back is just brutal as all hell, and the kills are just amazing. The animation is absolutely incredible. That movie's badass, and I really, really want to get that. I've only seen it once, and I saw it on DVD, and that came out a few years ago. But that's really, really awesome, and I think I've done a review on that at some point on this channel. But that's really, really good. And then a couple of years ago, there was another live action Mortal Kombat movie that came out, which I never saw. I think it came out 2 or 3 years ago, and I heard it was decent. I never heard good things about it. I still have not seen it. I was really curious to see it. Especially with maybe with some of the new technology, like what a new Mortal Kombat film would look like now and in 2024 at least that time. But I never saw it, and I heard it was like okay. I heard it was all right. I heard it was you know people were wanting more, and I always wanted. If there was going to be another Mortal Kombat movie, I always wanted a movie to come out that had the fun aspect of the original movie and had that heavy duty kind of fantasy element. But I always wanted. I always felt like there needed to be if there was going to be another Mortal Kombat movie, I wanted it to come out and get a real R rating. I wanted that R rated experience where it was going to be really violent and really graphic, and go to those places because the anime movie that had come out did that, but yet it was still true to the game and had great characters, the whole thing. And I was like, man, I think we deserve, and I consider myself a fan. I mean, there are other people out there when it comes to the Mortal Kombat world where they are like extreme fanatics because it has a huge fan base. And the games have been around for years and years, and these movies have been the first one came out so many years ago, and there's been many incarnations of different games or different versions of the games that have come out. And Mortal Kombat's one of the most popular for what it is, like martial arts movies or games. And it was also since Mortal Kombat had come out in the video game world, I mean that was, and also even movies for that matter in the movie world, definitely one of the most influential. I mean, there's been so many other fighting games that have come out since then that kind of take those elements, and also with movies, a lot of action movies. So definitely, one of the most popular, if not the most popular, also one of the most influential. There's going to be another movie coming out soon based on the Street Fighter game, which looks kind of fun too, which I saw the trailer for. But I always kept wanting there to be, if there's going to be another Mortal Kombat movie, I want it to have an R rating, and I want it to be a little bit more gory, a little bit more violent. And I'm happy to say that Mortal Kombat 2, which I saw yesterday, we went to the 1:30 show, is really good. I was I was really impressed. Um, yeah, I really like this movie, and it was very satisfying. It definitely has an R rating, so like the like it's basically everything I kind of wanted for a modern Mortal Kombat film. This is it. So I highly recommend it. It was thoroughly enjoyable. The fight scenes are really really great. It's pretty brutal. The kills are pretty satisfying. And again, I've always said that I'm not like I kind of always poo poo and kind of crap on um, practical effects and all those things, but I really think that the practical effects. Well, it's hard to say what is actually in camera or not because obviously to make a Mortal Kombat film, to do it justice, because I again in the past I've said many times of how I don't like CGI and blue screen and all of those things. I'm a at the core of my being I'm a practical effects guy because I just feel like when you see practical effects it just you know it's there's more imagination behind it. It has this more organic kind of thing to it, and it just leaves a deeper impression when you see really good practical effects, and that like it was a team of guys or girls that like worked their asses off to make this happen, and it's all real, like it's all in camera. But obviously, for certain styles of film and certain kinds of stories, you can't you can't necessarily rely solely on practical effects. Like you know Peter Jackson wasn't going to be able to do all of the original Lord of the Rings films with practical effects strictly. I mean, he had to because it's such a an epic film. It has this like sweeping, what's a sweeping saga, but it has this you know otherworld otherworldly approach. It's truly like the definition of world building, and it's just this grand scale kind of thing. So obviously, you have to be able to. You can't really tell that story with 80 bucks in your pocket kind of thing. You have to to do something like that. Like to tell a story like Return of the King or the Two Towers or the Fellowship. You have to it has to have a pretty good budget to get the story to get the story across and to get the story uh, at a high level, visually and everything. So there has to be, and I think what Peter Jackson did, perfect balance. There is and there are like practical effects. A lot of the things are in camera, but there is a lot of CGI. There is a lot of technology. But I think it's a perfect uh, combination of those things. And I have to say, with Mortal Kombat 2, obviously there's a lot of CGI, a lot of digital effects, if you will. But I do think that there is a practical element to this movie. It does feel like there are certain things that were done in camera. But I have to say, given that this movie, and again, this is like a very heightened kind of fantasy martial arts film, they did an awesome job. Like I think all like this is, and again, I have spent a lot of time shitting on bad CGI a lot, and in the past. But I've also always said that I'm not like against it completely. I'm a practical effects guy, but I think there's a balance, and I think there are examples, positive and negatives usually with most things, but there are really good examples you know, of CGI of where it's used really, really well and it looks really great. And then you have that combination of CGI and practical effects where it's a perfect kind of marriage. And have to say with Mortal Kombat, like I'd probably, I don't know for sure, but I would take a, I would probably say that this movie has, a huge abundance of CGI and digital effects, and there is practical effects, I think, in the film. But I think they did a absolutely fantastic job. This is a perfect example of blending, technology, CGI stuff, and practical effects, because I think it looks amazing. It's a perfect example of that. I never felt too. Um, I don't know. Watching the movie, I never felt like it wasn't believable. Even though this is obviously it's a Mortal Kombat film and it's a very, fantasy based. I bought everything that I saw. I was totally invested in this world. I thought the characters were great. This movie really emphasizes Luke Cage, who's a big character in the Mortal Kombat films and the story, and they do a fantastic job with introducing his character and to see where he becomes an integral part of the storyline. And they also introduce a handful of other characters. And this movie was fun as hell. I think it's super entertaining. It's got great um, world building, the look, the aesthetic of the whole world of this Mortal Kombat universe looks, I think, pretty fantastic. It's got a lot of great humor. There's a lot of funny, really actually funny moments, like legitimately, which I was surprised. And the other part of it, which is what you really want from a Mortal Kombat film, is you want to see really great fight scenes, fight choreography, and you want the stuff to be pretty violent and pretty brutal. And it totally delivers. It's very gory. There's some great kills, pretty brutal kills, and it's definitely an R-rated movie. And so, really, I was really impressed with this movie, and the pacing was really, really good. It's, I think it's like almost 2 hours or so, but the pacing of this film was really, really good. It was totally believable. I loved all the characters. It was a good balance of where you had some really great kills. It was, you know, those kinds of darker aspects were very good. Great character development. The worlds that we're introduced to, or the world itself of this universe in Mortal Kombat 2, looked really good. The fantasy element was killer. And it was really funny, and it was fun. It was a fun movie. It had this really cool balance of um, you know, a modern kind of take on the Mortal Kombat series, but it also felt very, very retro at the same time. They did a really good job with balancing that kind of thing of like those two time periods, real modern, but then also kind of where the story started in the 90s. And it has a great combination of that. I love the retro feel, but it's not too much and it's not too modern at the same time, but really, really fun. I had a total blast with this movie, and I was surprised too because I went to the matinee, and there were quite a few people there for the matinee. I was like, "Huh, okay." And I do think, again, my favorite thing to do in my free time is to go to the movies, and I do think because of this movie being so visual, it is definitely a movie to see in the theater and to experience in the theater because it's definitely, it's a feast for the senses. It really is. It's super entertaining. I've always said, I've always been, when a good movie comes out and a movie that is, because not every movie per se is something that needs to literally be seen on the big screen. Even though I do kind of feel that way, but certain movies, certain styles of films obviously are more of a visual thing to kind of behold or experience. And I do think that this movie is definitely one of those. Like, this is definitely a movie to be seen on the big screen. Like, definitely, because it's super fun, and I had a great time. The cast was really great. I really loved the cast for this movie. I was really impressed. I had a really good time. It put me in a good mood. Again, the cast is really great. We got Carl Urban as Johnny Cage, who is he's fantastic in this movie. He's really great. He definitely has, like, that charisma, that he's got that presence. He's just really great. He's super funny. The script is really good for this movie too. It's really great. It's a great balance of, like, some dramatic elements, good elements, and it's got a lot of comedic little twists and turns. The story is pretty good. I like, I thought it was, real solid and relatively easy to follow. Very, it was well done. Adeline Rudolph is also in this film. Jessica McName, Martin Ford, Louis Tan, also Johannes Taslim, Tati Gabrielle, Ludi Lin, Josh Lawson, McCade Brooks, C.J. Bloomfield, and I do believe it just opened. Friday was its opening day, and we saw it yesterday, which was Sunday on Mother's Day. And it was directed by Simon McQuid. But so I can't recommend this movie enough. It was super fun. This is one of those movies that comes along that, for what it is, an action science fiction movie based on a video, classic video game. This is a primetime reason to go to the theater, to get your butt to the theater. So I highly recommend to see this movie in the theater, because it really is total immersion, a totally good time for a couple hours. So yeah, great stuff, super fun. Peace.